Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we'll be going deep on analog devices. You might know them better as ADI. They're a big name in the semiconductor space.
That's right.
We got a bunch of stuff from you guys to dig into today. An analyst report, the earnings call transcript, and a few news articles. So, ADI. Looks like they beat earnings expectations last quarter, even with the economy being kind of shaky. Pretty impressive, right?
Yeah, definitely impressive. There are a few key factors behind ADI's success. Their wide economic moat is one of their main strengths.
A moat, like a castle.
Well, not literally a moat, it's more like a business term. It means they've got a strong competitive advantage thanks to a solid analog foundation, a diverse range of products, cutting-edge tech, and really good relationships with their customers.
Ah, so not just good products, but like a whole strategy thing.
Exactly.
Makes it tough for competitors to catch up.
Exactly. A sustainable business model that can weather any economic storm and keep those profits coming in long term.
Got it. Speaking of performance, the earnings call transcript for Q4 of fiscal year 2024 shows they did really well, beat expectations, and even saw what they call sequential growth across all their market segments. Can you unpack that a bit? What is sequential growth anyway?
Sure. Sequential growth means they're growing compared to the previous quarter, so not just the same time last year, but the last quarter. Shows some real momentum and adaptability in a fast-changing market. And the fact that ADI is achieving this across all segments means their offerings are strong and diverse. They aren't relying on just one product or market to drive their success.
Okay, so not putting all their eggs in one basket. That's smart. But the report also mentions some mixed signals, like, yeah, things are good now, but there's some uncertainty about the future. What's driving that?
Well, there are macroeconomic headwinds to consider, like weak demand in some areas, industrial applications, for example. That impacts overall growth, even if ADI is outperforming right now. These bigger economic trends could affect them down the line.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
So even though ADI is doing well, investors need to keep an eye on those bigger trends. Now, for someone who wants to invest in ADI, what are their biggest strengths? What really sets them apart?
Several things, really, but I'd say their technological leadership is huge. They've got what's called a cutting-edge technology stack that allows them to develop innovative products.
So they're not just keeping up with technology, they're actually pushing boundaries.
Right. For example, they just launched Code Fusion Studio, a software platform, and ADI Sure, a security architecture, all about enhancing cybersecurity. Really shows their commitment to innovation.
Wow, so they're on the cutting edge. And what about their customer relationships? How do those play into their strengths?
Well, they have amazing relationships with their customers. They're known for working closely with them, really understanding their needs and developing tailored solutions.
So it's a partnership, not just a sale.
Exactly. That focus has built a lot of loyalty, which has really contributed to their success.
It sounds like a really solid approach. And their product portfolio, it seems pretty diverse.
Oh, absolutely. ADI's portfolio covers so many industries. Automotive, industrial, healthcare, communications.
Wow, that's a wide range.
It is, and that diversification helps them manage risk. They're not overly dependent on any one sector, so if one area has a downturn, they've got others to rely on.
That's smart, especially in these uncertain times.
Yeah.
What about their growth potential? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for them down the road?
ADI is really well positioned for long-term growth, especially in the automotive, industrial, and healthcare sectors. Think about it. Electric vehicles, autonomous driving, that's huge for ADI. They specialize in things like advanced sensors and power management systems, all of which are in high demand in this new automotive world.
So they're riding the wave of innovation there.
Exactly. And in industrial, there's a growing need for automation and efficiency, which drives demand for ADI's sensing, control, and connectivity solutions. And in healthcare, wearable devices, remote monitoring, all that relies on ADI's high-precision components.
Okay, so they're in a good spot to benefit from all these trends. But we can't ignore the potential downsides, right? What challenges could slow them down?
Well, the semiconductor industry is super competitive.
That's true.
They're up against giants like Texas Instruments and Infineon Technologies, all vying for market share.
So they need to keep innovating and stay ahead of the game.
All the time. And then there's the cyclical nature of the industry. When the economy slows down, demand for electronics drops, which can really impact ADI's revenues and profits.
Right, they're vulnerable to those cycles.
Definitely. And then there's the geopolitical risks that come with global manufacturing. Trade tensions, political instability, even natural disasters. All that could disrupt their supply chain and affect their bottom line.
Wow, so many challenges to navigate. Based on all this information, which of these concerns seem the most pressing right now?
That's a tough one. It's really a mix of all of it. The macroeconomic environment is a worry, as is the competition. ADI needs to be really careful to maintain its growth in this environment.
So it's not just about seizing opportunities, it's about managing those risks really effectively.
Exactly. They need to be both agile and resilient to really thrive in this industry.
Now let's get to the heart of it.
Yeah.
What does all this mean for someone who's thinking about investing in ADI? The report gives an average price target of $246, but of course this deep dive is for informational purposes only, not financial advice.
Right. Always important to remember that investing has risks.
Absolutely. Do your research, talk to a financial advisor, all that good stuff.
Couldn't agree more. It's your money. You need to be comfortable with the level of risk.
So to sum it up, ADI has a strong track record, commitment to innovation, solid position in key growth markets. But they also face some headwinds from the economy and that tough competition.
Exactly. Weighing those rewards against the risks.
Okay, now let's take a closer look at those risks, starting with how vulnerable ADI is to economic downturns. How might that affect their business?
That's a really key point. The semiconductor industry, it's very cyclical. When the economy slows, demand for electronics drops, and that can really hit companies like ADI.
It's all about those supply chains and how they react. So what does the report say about ADI's ability to weather those economic storms?
Well, they've got a few things going for them. Their diverse product portfolio helps spread that risk. They're not overly dependent on one market or one customer.
So like not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Right. And they've got a history of managing costs effectively that can help them maintain profitability even when revenues take a hit.
Diversified and financially responsible. What else should investors be thinking about when it comes to ADI and economic cycles?
Their customer base. ADI serves a wide range of industries, but some are definitely more sensitive to economic changes than others. The industrial sector, for example. They're a big chunk of ADI's business, and they can be hit hard during recessions.
So investors need to be watching the overall health of those industries. If manufacturing or automotive starts to look shaky, that could be a red flag for ADI.
Exactly. Everything's connected. The big picture affects everyone, even giants like analog devices.
All right, let's talk about another big risk. The intense competition in the semiconductor world. ADI is strong, but they're not the only player. What are the biggest competitive threats they face, and how are they holding up?
That's the question, right? ADI is constantly battling it out with the biggest names. Texas Instruments, Infineon Technologies, big companies with big resources.
So it's a race to innovate and stay ahead.
Absolutely. And the automotive sector is one where competition is really heating up. Electric vehicles, autonomous driving, everyone wants in on that. ADI is invested, but so are their competitors. It's a real fight for market share.
So investors need to watch who's winning those big contracts for automotive components.
Exactly. Those contracts can make or break a company. And another area to watch is the data center market. Huge demand for high-performance computing, which means intense competition for power management and connectivity solutions.
So how is ADI setting themselves apart? What's their strategy?
Well, they're really leveraging their expertise in analog technology. They're creating these highly specialized products that offer top performance and efficiency, and they're focusing on building those strong partnerships with key customers.
It's not just about short-term gains, it's about quality and relationship.
Exactly, building a sustainable competitive advantage.
Okay, let's move on to a risk that's unique to companies with global operations. Geopolitical risks. ADI has factories all over the world, which makes them vulnerable to all sorts of disruptions. What are some of the specific risks investors should be aware of?
Well, trade tensions are a big one, especially between the U.S. and China. You see tariffs, sanctions, trade barriers that disrupt those supply chains and drive up costs.
We've seen how quickly those trade wars can escalate and create uncertainty for global companies.
Right. And then there's political instability. If there's unrest or conflict in a key region, that can disrupt production and make it really difficult to do business.
So investors need to keep an eye on the political landscape in places like Southeast Asia, where so much semiconductor manufacturing happens.
Absolutely. And then you've got potential regulatory changes. Governments can make new laws that affect how ADI operates or even restrict access to certain markets.
It's a lot to keep track of. So how is ADI mitigating these risks? How are they making their global operations more resilient?
One strategy is diversifying their manufacturing footprint. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. By spreading production across different regions, they can reduce their exposure to problems in any one location.
That makes sense. A good backup plan.
Right. And they're working closely with their suppliers, too, building strong relationships, collaborating to address those potential risks proactively.
So it's all about collaboration, being adaptable, staying ahead of the curve.
Exactly. A multi-pronged approach to managing geopolitical risks and making sure their operations can continue no matter what.
Okay, we've covered so much today: earnings, risks, the future. But I want to leave our listeners with one last question. What could really boost ADI's growth in the future? Or, on the flip side, what could hinder their progress?
That's the big question, isn't it? Well, I think the explosion of data could really accelerate their growth. The world is generating more data than ever before, and that drives demand for high-performance solutions, which is ADI's specialty. If they can tap into that, there's huge potential.
Riding the data wave.
Hmm.
But what about roadblocks? What could slow them down?
Well, one concern is that the semiconductor industry is becoming more commoditized. More players entering the market, competition heats up, prices drop. ADI needs to stay innovative, create those unique products, and avoid getting caught in a price war.
So staying ahead of the curve, constantly pushing forward.
Right. And the increasing complexity of the technology itself is another potential challenge. As systems become more sophisticated, the design and manufacturing processes get tougher, which could lead to delays or costs going up.
So keeping those engineering teams sharp and those manufacturing processes efficient is key.
Absolutely. The semiconductor industry is not for the faint of heart. It's all about staying on the cutting edge.
Well, it seems like ADI is up for the challenge. Great track record, solid strategy, talented team. But as we've said, there are risks. What are your final thoughts for our listeners who are trying to make sense of all this?
I'd say Analog Devices is a great company with a lot of potential, but understanding the risks is so important both in the industry and in the bigger economic and geopolitical landscape. Do your homework, stay informed, and invest in what makes sense for your own risk tolerance.
Great advice. And remember, this deep dive is just the starting point. Always more to learn. Share your thoughts in the comments. What stood out to you? What questions do you have? Keep the conversation going.
I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone.
And hey, while you're down there, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you don't miss our future deep dives. We're always looking at new companies, industries, ideas.
We love making these complex topics easy to understand and engaging, and we're committed to giving you high-quality content that you can trust.
So come along for the ride. Subscribe to the deep dive and let's explore the world together. Until next time, stay curious.